This is a game between Magnus Carlsen and Yifan Hou, the number one rated male chess player and the number one rated female chess player. The game began with d4, knight f6, c4, e6. She wants to play the Nimzo Indian after knight c3, but Magnus doesn't allow this. He just plays knight f3, and we get into the Queen's Gambit declined main line. d5, knight c3, and semi-Tarrasch with c5. e3, just stabilizing the whole center, having everything be protected. She took on c4, so now we're in the Queen's Gambit accepted, and Magnus took back. a6, preparing b5, queenside expansion with the pawns, and Magnus Carlsen just castles away. b5, and Magnus Carlsen just brings the bishop back, not trying to go to d4 and make it a d3 and make it a threat to c4. He just brings it all the way back. Bishop e7. Now she has a bishop lasering this side of the board, and Magnus Carlsen attempts to open up the center while her king is still in the center. So first she removes the queens so her king can be a little safer. He takes back with the rook, and as you can see, she is a very active bishop pair compared to Magnus's, which is just this one's just looking at this, and this bishop just stuck. So Magnus Carlsen just tries to reroute the knight, maybe here in the future if this knight or bishop ever moves, and just tries to attack the bishop pair. She just she develops her knight without blocking the vision of her light squared bishop, and knight b3. Magnus goes with his plan to attack the bishop pair. She brings it back, and a nice undermining move of the queenside pawns, which are greatly expanded. a4, preparing to just open everything up on the queen side, and she shuts this down by playing b4. A nice move by Magnus, just to play a5 and attack the bishop. And you may be thinking, I'm just up a pawn here. I'm confused why this is bad. But as you can see, her king is still in the center, and Magnus has very open pieces. He can just play something like knight c5, attacking this bishop, which she does not want to lose, and this very weak pawn with the bishop, knight, and rook. And she gave up the bishop pair for this. It's just not a good position for her. So instead, she just brings the bishop back to d8, and Magnus Carlsen goes knight e4, planning to use this square that he just got by playing a5 previously. Bishop d5, attacking the knight in b3, centralizing her bishop. Knight bc5, although this kind of just does help him. But as you can see, this knight left the guard of the a5 pawn, so she takes the a5 pawn, but she's not really going to be able to hold on to it for so long. After bishop d2, this bishop is just stuck here defending the pawn, not going to be much use for the whole game, so she just castles away and gets her king into the center. Rook dc1, as you can see, using this rook instead of this rook, since this rook will be useful along the a file, and this rook on the d file won't be that helpful on the queen side. So she does the same, rook fc8, and now he takes a pawn back, attacking the rook. She goes rook c7, possibly having ideas of going rook c8 once the bishop moves in the future and doubling up. And now he just brings the bishop back. She takes in c5, and he takes back with the knight. He doesn't really want to take with this, possibly ideas of doubling up and just rolling you on the c file. So he just takes with the knight, and a6, creating a little left for the king so there's no back rank threats in the future. Knight a6, offering a rook trade and also attacking it twice. So she just takes, and as you can see, now Magnus Carlsen has the c file, which could be very useful in the future, and both sides have the bishop pair. She just moves back, threatening to take the knight, and Magnus Carlsen just moves back. And since she doesn't want to lose her strong bishop, she just centralizes it, gets it out of the way of the knight. And a nice move by Magnus, A nice move by Magnus f3 here. It stops any movement by the knight, as well as it prepares e4 and just puts this bishop in jail. Nothing really to do there. She plays b3, and she offered a dark square bishop trade. He takes it, and they trade. Sorry, my computer's having some issues. And Magnus Carlsen is now threatening to win this b3 pawn and having a passed b pawn. She tries to bring the king into the endgame, and now Magnus Carlsen plays his e4 idea, which takes use of this f3 move he played previously. As you can see, this bishop is now just completely dead, biting on granite. Just 3 light squared pawns. It's never going to be used fully for the entire game. So Magnus Carlsen just sweeps up the last pawn that was blockading the b2 pawn, and now he's a very strong pawn here. She's just attempting to bring the king in to the endgame, and Magnus Carlsen plays rook a4, preparing to play b4 in the future, and he wanted to remove the bishop, which was blocking the pawn. She just brings it back, brings her rook back, not trying to be a target for b4 in the future, and Magnus Carlsen just pushes his pawn, b4, knight e8, a nice backwards knight move, attempting to get into the game, but Magnus Carlsen plays a very nice move. He just takes it off. At first glance, you would think this bishop is just going to be better than this knight, but Magnus Carlsen realizes that this knight will be better than this bishop, considering how trash it is just looking at this diagonal, and he just continues pushing down with his pawn. She kind of creates a pin, but he could always go to b3 or d3 in the future, so he just continues. Rook c8. You'd think that this is a nice little fork, but actually just hangs your pawn, and this is just a draw now, since you can't capture due to this, and now you'd actually be losing. So, he just, it seems like he hung his knight, but not really. This would come with check, and then the pawn promotes. So, she just protects her bishop, and now, he pushes his pawn even further. Yifan Hou eventually knows that she's going to have to sacrifice her bishop for it. Rook b8, just green blockade, and rook a6, just attacking the bishop on c6. You might think that, oh, I can take this, but not really. After, and you might be thinking like this, and no, it's equal, but no. Instead of taking immediately, instead you'd go here, pin the bishop. The king is too far away to get involved, so then you just take, and it's just easily winning from here. The knight will be able to reroute and just attack these pawns on the king side, which are very weak. And this move, after this move, she just resigned because she had nothing else to do, really.